Morning world, it's Sunday the 13th of October 2019. It's about 9 a.m. in the morning at UK time. So this is a kind of Sunday sermon plus a full moon video plus a kind of assessment on where we are in the world at the moment. So it's going to take a few minutes. First thing I want to say, just to get it out of the way, is a big thank you to all those people who have signed up for my 2-day workshop in 2 weeks' time in Croydon in South London. I've now sold 30 spaces. There are still 8 more left, maybe 10 at a push. So if you want to come and hear me talking about the basics of astrology for 6 hours a day for 2 days in a row in South London in 2 weekends' time, then drop me a line at steve@stevejudd.com and I'll send you all the details. First come, first served. Now, today, it's full moon. It's full moon in Aries. The sun later today will be at 21 degrees of Libra. The moon will be at 21 degrees of Aries. Pluto in the sky is at 21 degrees of Capricorn, exactly squaring both the sun and the moon at the moment of full moon. However, Jupiter is also at 21 degrees of Sagittarius, exactly sextiling the sun and trining the full moon. So we've got a real paradox here. Let's look at the negative side first and then the positive. Sun square Pluto, moon square Pluto. These are extremely difficult aspects in astrology, some of the hardest of all. They create a kind of obsessive compulsive pattern of intensity and extremes with the potential for crises and trauma. There's always an element of purging and detoxing and purifying and cleansing and eliminating. Because these are happening in cardinal signs, this is not something that's going to be adaptable and flexible and tolerant and easygoing as it would be if it were immutable signs. Neither is it something that's going to be sort of just rigid and inflexible and thorough and determined as it would be if it were in fixed signs. It's in cardinal signs. Aries, Cancer, Aries, Capricorn, Libra. So this is going to be much more a time of action. Now, I've focused on this full moon a lot with regard to a number of different environmental and political situations. Full moon exactly squaring Pluto, there's nothing gentle about it. The word extremes comes to my mind. Now, we see all around the globe at the moment massive environmental and ecological protest that is only going to get stronger and stronger. And the politicians are just absolutely ignoring it. So this is something that is seriously not going to go away. It is only going to get more and more in your face. And the politicians around the world are completely out of touch with the reality. And to those of you who just think, oh, hippie shit, didn't mean to say that, but anyway, that it's nothing to do with it, it's not a human thing. Yes, it is. And even if it's not human caused, we're all going to suffer. And if we're not going to suffer, our children and our grandchildren are going to suffer massively unless we do something about this, like right now. In Britain, certainly, a lot of supermarkets suddenly are getting rid of all the plastic. There's a lot of changes happening, but it's still only lip service. We actually need to stop emitting carbon. And that does mean giving up your petrol or diesel car. And it does mean finding an alternative to aviation fuel for flights. It does mean a whole new power system. It has to happen. Because without it, we're going to live on a dead planet in less than 100 years. With the sun square Pluto and the moon square Pluto, there's also the political agenda going on and the events. With the sun and moon square Pluto, I was talking to someone the other day and they were saying, well, what's the worst case scenario? And I went, some type of atrocity, some type of slaughter. Now we're seeing an increase, steadily, gradually an increase in the number of mass killings and shootings, whether it be in Britain with knives, with America with guns, all over the world in different countries we're seeing this. We're also seeing a massive potential slaughter happening in Syria, Turkey and Kurdistan. And the repercussions of this are going to go on 100 years. I have one or two Kurdish people I know, only one or two, and they are in Britain. But what I know of them is that these people have had millennia of persecution, and they never, ever, ever give up. And the people who have abandoned them now in their time of need, well, they're always going to need to watch their backs now for a long, long time to come. And now all the ISIS captives have been freed from the jails, so I'm going to unleash another holy war. What a mess. We're also seeing, with the Sun square Pluto and the Moon square Pluto, a level of extremism in all areas of political life, regardless of what country you're in. Political parties seem to be becoming more and more dichotomized. There's no centre ground anymore. And in my experience, and bearing in mind I have been studying this for well over 40 years now and practicing it for over 40 years, whenever anything gets to an extreme, there will reach a breaking point. And when that breaking point happens, it's like a piece of elastic that snaps. And inevitably there will be a sudden surge back to the centre. We're already seeing it in Britain with the increased calls for the government of national unity, or a coalition government. And this is something I can truly see happening. With the next election, there will not be a majority, and as a result there will have to be a consensus government in some shape or form. I suspect the same is going to happen in America. Increasingly, the leaders of both America and Britain are being seen as either heroes or pariahs by their respective populace. Sun square Pluto, Moon square Pluto, it's extremes, and it's going to get worse in the next week or so. Let's look at the positive side, because there is a big positive side. The Sun is sextile Jupiter. The Moon is trine Jupiter. Jupiter's the planet of growth and expansion. It brings optimism and hope and faith and humour and belief and fun. And Jupiter's in Sagittarius at the moment, its own sign. It loves being in the middle of Sagittarius. It can be exuberant, expansive. And when it's sextile the Sun and trining the Moon, it does bring the opportunity for joy and pleasure, a little bit of indulgence and fun. But remember that Jupiter gives out 2 or 3 times as much heat and light as it takes in from the Sun. It is hot gas billowing out. It has no surface, so you can't land on Jupiter, so it has no substance. It always promises more than it delivers. And yet, because it's in Sagittarius, its own sign, where it's happiest, and because it's exactly sextile the Sun and trine the Moon, I actually view this as an extremely positive aspect. So if I balance Jupiter and Sagittarius sextile and trine the Sun Moon, as opposed to Pluto and Capricorn square the Sun and Moon, Pluto's okay in Capricorn, Jupiter's great in Sagittarius. Jupiter and Pluto are equal and opposite. They're the biggest and the smallest of planets. They're the lightest and brightest and the darkest. They're equal in terms of the mythology. They were both brothers, they're both the sons of Kronos, Saturn. When they split the firmament up, Jupiter took the overworld, Pluto took the underworld. And now they're not so much warring against each other, but they're both trying to influence the bigger picture. One for the purpose of joy and fortune and hope, and one for massive forced transformation and restructuring of society. In the short term, Jupiter's going to win. In the short term. In the long term, Pluto's going to win every time. Pluto's march through Capricorn is not going to be stopped. And when you add to this, that in 2 weeks from now, there is a new moon at 4 degrees of Scorpio. Sun and Moon together at 4 degrees of Scorpio. opposite Uranus precisely, well, exactly, not necessarily precisely, but within half a degree. So that is going to bring in a period of radical change. Radical change. I do note with interest that Jupiter in the sky is about to land opposite Donald Trump's sun and on Donald Trump's moon. I've been fingering this time for him for many, many years, thinking that if he's ever going to implode, this is when it's going to be. He does seem to be under a lot of pressure at the moment for impeachment, and he's becoming more and more recalcitrant around cooperating with anyone who doesn't see the world he does. Boris Johnson is hemorrhaging support. More and more people are just sort of looking at him and shaking their heads and going, this guy's got no idea at all. Mind you, the alternative is in Britain is even worse. I have no time for the left-wing antics of Corbyn and his left-wing Labour associates. I still think there's going to be a government of national unity in this country, probably before Christmas, depends when the election happens, regardless of Brexit. And I shall do another video on that later today. But that'll be for British viewers only. Okay, I've got to go and prepare for this workshop I'm doing in 2 weeks' time. Catch you later, world. Bye.